The Monks in Motion project has been investigating English Benedictine monks in mainland Europe. It's been looking at the ways that they brought ideas back to England, but also vice versa, so bringing ideas from England to Europe as well. What we're going to look at today are some books that are held at Ushaw College and Durham University. We're going to see how these collections, which aren't monastic in any way, feature the monks quite strongly. In the middle of the 16th century, when Henry VIII came to the throne and he made the decision to change towards Protestantism for a number of reasons, he dissolved all of the monasteries in England. That might be Benedictines like we're talking about. And so at the beginning of the 17th century, we have a movement to found English Benedictine communities in mainland Europe. The first of these is at Douai, St. Gregory's, followed by St. Lawrence's at Dillois, followed by St. Edmund's at Paris, and there's also one monastery in northern Germany at Lamspring. Now these monasteries we might know better today as St. Gregory's at Douai is Downside, just outside Bath, St. Lawrence's is Ampleforth on the Yorkshire moors, and St. Edmund's from Paris is now at Douai Abbey in Reading. If we take Durham Cathedral as an example of a former monastery and we look just at the books, we can see that some stayed in the cathedral, but some stayed in Catholic hands. So for example, you can see names such as Thomas Tempest on this book, showing that it went into a Catholic family and was kept by them. The monks actually did continue to elect a prior of Durham Cathedral. The idea being that when England returned to Catholicism, the monks would reclaim what was theirs. If we look at this book by Clement Rayner, who was the abbot of Lamspring, it's about staking that claim to the former monasteries and saying that the English Benedictines after the Reformation are the same as those from before the Reformation. Despite being in mainland Europe, the English Benedictine monks continued to have an interest in what was happening in England. So for example, Lamspring held a book written by John Sargent, not a Benedictine, but a Catholic controversialist. Here we have another example, and what's unusual about this book is it's actually, we can see it moving from Lamspring to England. It seems to have done that through a particular monk, George Augustine Walker. And we know that because his family's names appear inside the book. And due to the dating, we can see the movement from England to Germany and then back from Germany to England. Despite their prescribed status in England, the English Benedictines could actually have quite an influence. So a prime example of this is Augustine Baker. He's known for marrying pre-Reformation English spirituality with what was called the Counter-Reformation or Catholic Reformation in mainland Europe. So he keeps alive an English spiritual tradition, but putting it into a European continental context. The English Benedictine monasteries in exile also ran schools, and this was a direct way that they could influence the culture of England despite being on the continent. So for example, this is a book held at Lamspring, but we know it was used in the school because we have several names of school children written in the front of this book. And what they're reading here is a work of controversy by the renowned Jesuit writer Robert Parsons. So a huge act of controversy by a very influential figure being used within that school. What we have here is a book from something called the Confraternity of the Holy Rosary. Now, if we want to think of a confraternity, think of it loosely as a prayer group for Catholics to get together, and obviously in England to do that secretly. And this book was written by two monks, one from St. Gregory's, one from St. Lawrence's. What shows the reach of the work of these two monks is that this belongs to Catherine of Braganza, who was the wife of King Charles II. So we have two English Benedictines writing a book about a very European practice, bringing it to England, producing a secret, illegal book that is then in the personal collection of the wife of the King Charles II. What these artefacts together show is the English Benedictines plugging in and out of the national story, whether that be their European links or whether it be their national links. They are much bigger than just a group of men who are sat in their monasteries in Europe and not having anything to do with the wider world.